later meeting. So we'll do that. We'll record it, and that way people will have the opportunity to have heard it from us in person, have the opportunity to zoom in, or if they couldn't make it, to watch the video later on. So hopefully that highlights the importance of giving all employees the opportunity to tell us directly what it is that they do. We're going to go through all of that here in the meeting, but I just really kind of want to highlight that the classification and compensation study, we want to review your job, what it is that you do, what your job entails, so that we don't have to guess. We're not coming up with anything without your input and without that process. So we'll get into all that here in a minute. But yeah, as Jarvin mentioned, my name is Bob Longmire with Public Sector Personnel Consultants. Personnel consulting for the public sector is all that we really do. We do maybe 30 or 40 of these studies a year. I do the vast majority of my work here in the LA area, specializing in classification and compensation studies in a heavily union environment, where we talk about how do we stack up salary schedule to salary schedule, and how do we stack up total compensation to total compensation. So we've done a lot of projects here for your neighbors. Some of the comparators on the list, some of the people that we're going to look to in the market portion of the study, we've worked with. We're just wrapping up the study at Fontana. We did Riverside, San Bernardino. So we're in the area. Hopefully that only qualifies us to ask good questions and listen when you talk and tell us things directly. So we're going to kind of talk about what that process looks like here in a minute. So high level, classification and compensation study. That's an overly complicated way of saying we're trying to answer 3 questions for every job at the city. We're trying to say, does your job title make sense? Does your job description accurately reflect what you do? And then what's the going market rate? So if you were to not sell the house, you don't pull the kids out of school, you commute in a different direction, what would they pay you? Those are the 3 questions that we're trying to answer for every job at the city. Okay. The reason why you do a study is so that the city can recruit and retain quality staff. That's maybe the 1-sentence takeaway behind why you do a study. Studies also provide clarity during the bargaining process. We'll talk about that here in a little bit as well. The data is meant to live at the table so that all parties have access to it. Everybody can see it, maximum transparency, nobody's hiding anything, and everybody can be on the same page. So if you ever aren't sure what to do, if you're ever not sure when you're going through the questionnaire that we'll get to here at the end of everything, if you're not sure why we're trying to ask the question or we phrased the question this way on the questionnaire, we're trying to say, does the job title make sense? Does the job description reflect what you do? And can we find your job out in the market? So those are really the 3 big questions behind a classification and compensation study. All right, maybe a couple other things that are helpful before we really dig into this and jump off. A couple of things the study is not. Maybe right off the bat, it's not a staffing needs analysis. We're not here to recommend anyone be let go. As I said, my name's Bob. I have the worst name for somebody who does what I do if you've ever seen Office Space. Okay? Not here to move anybody's staplers. No one's going to be let go. So we're also not recommending anyone's salary be reduced as part of the study. I don't think there's a better way to demotivate someone than to say, hey, do you want to come to work on Monday for less than you made on Friday? It's going to be great. Right? Again, that's kind of a non-starter. Certainly in today's competitive job environment, where there's never been a better time to be a certified, trained, maybe even willing employee, right? So none of what we do supersedes the bargaining process. So just because we put it in Excel doesn't make it so. It still has to be discussed, still has to be bargained over, budget, council, all of those different moving pieces, okay? It's also not a performance evaluation. I'm going to go through the questionnaire here at the end, and you're going to have about 2 weeks to complete it. I'm going to walk you through it. I want to give you a little bit of some thoughts, a little bit of some guidance, but we're not here to review your job. We're not here to say, are you good at your job? right? We're trying to learn directly from you, the subject matter expert, what it is that your job entails so that we can answer those three questions. So we can say, does the job title make sense? Does your job description accurately reflect what you do? And what's the going market rate? Okay. This is also something most organizations do maybe every 4 to 6 years. To be honest, it's becoming a little bit more common during the negotiating cycle to have a salary survey be done to see where the jobs stack up and where they fall. So what we do is becoming more common than it used to be in today's world. But this is something most organizations typically do every 4 to 6 years to say, all right, does our job title make sense? Do we have the right separation between ones and twos and threes and seniors and leads and supervisors? Do we have titling protocols between different departments? Are we calling the same thing? Are we calling people the same thing in different departments? It's just that chance to look across the whole organization. So this, one of the ways to think about it is it's not something that's being done to you. This is something that most organizations do, like I said, every 4 to 6 years to make sure we have an accurate job title, an updated job description, so that you're not spending all of your time on other duties as assigned, right? Everybody's 4 favorite words. And then making sure that the city has a competitive market rate. All right. So last bullet point here. I'll say is this is not the process by which everybody gets a raise. So a couple benchmarks. No one's going backwards. No one's winning the lottery. You still work for the city. Don't go buy a new boat because we're here today. Okay. Don't expect a huge windfall. We'll talk about what some possible outcomes of the salary survey side of things are at the end. But the best piece of advice I can give you is do not change your lifestyle, right? Do not go out and make big purchases or do something like that because the city is doing a study. Maybe your job is behind market and we need to increase the salary range for it. Maybe your job is at market and it's good where it is, and your job does not need to increase as a result of this study. So I don't know which one of those is the case. The best advice I can give anybody is don't go buy a boat. Okay. So maybe a couple healthy brackets on what the study is. No one's being let go. No one's going backwards. Don't buy a boat. Okay. All right. Let's jump into the classification side of things, and then we'll get into the compensation, and we'll spend a little bit of time there. So the classification side of things. Classification is the first 2 questions. Does your job title make sense? And does your job description reflect what you do? Right now, we got around about 65 different job titles in use, depending on how you count. And there's roughly 95 of you, again, depending on how you count, full-time, part-time, all of those different things. Okay, so do we have the right titles for the people that accurately reflect what they do? Okay, that's classification side of things. Couple possible outcomes. Maybe we need to update the title. Maybe right now we have a technician and it should be called a specialist, or maybe we have a specialist and it should be called a technician. Maybe we have title changes where we need to update the words that we use to describe your job. That's classification. Maybe right now there's functions and tasks and duties that you perform that don't live on the job description. So we need to update, modernize, bring the job description in line with the work that's actually being done. Okay. Again, that's the classification side of things. The way we do that, our primary source to know what it is that you do is the Position Analysis Questionnaire. We abbreviate it as the PAQ. It's your opportunity to tell us directly what it is that you do. We'll walk through it page by page here at the end, and I'll kind of guide you through that. There's an online version. There's a paper version if you're more comfortable filling things out by hand. If you like to type and it just helps you collect your thoughts and you want to work on it on the computer, that's great. You can work on them as a group. So if there's 5 of you and you all have the same job title, and for lack of a better concept, you're interchangeable, and you want to give us one questionnaire with 10 people's names on it, that's great. We're not here to create administrative cumbersome bureaucracy. We're here to learn from the employees what it is that you do. So however you want to get us that information works for us. Maybe take a look at your existing job description, carry it around with you for a week, write on it, mark it up, cross it out. You can talk with your supervisor, talk to somebody if you're new in your job, talk to somebody who used to have your job. Again, however you want to get that process started works for us. Please work on them on city time. Don't do them at home at night, after hours when you're tired. This is something, like I said, most organizations do every 4 to 6 years. It's not an insignificant investment of labor hours to have everybody complete a questionnaire. Hopefully that communicates the importance of taking the time to do this. This is how we know what it is that you do and what your job entails, is it's your opportunity. So if you think about the direction the information flows, we're not coming into the city saying, oh, okay, I heard you're a water distribution operator. I heard that title. I've seen that title before. I know what it is that you do, right? We're not guessing at it. You can tell us. Everybody has things structured differently everywhere we go, okay? Everyone has their own flavor, their own nuances, their own take on things, and we want to make sure that we're accurately capturing the work that's being done, okay? So that's the PAQ. We also might have the opportunity to meet with some other individuals and just talk about your job. Say, hey, tell me a little bit more about what it is that you do. Hey, help me understand, where do you stop working? What decisions do you make? What does your supervisor make? Help me understand a little bit more about the PAQ. So if you get asked to come and just speak with us or show us around or something like that, don't be worried. Again, remember, nobody's being let go. Sometimes we have people show up to those interviews with like their resume and they think they have to reapply for their job, and it's none of that. We're just trying to learn from the employees what it is that your job entails so that we can answer those 3 questions. Does your job title make sense? Does the job description reflect what you do? And can we find your job out on the market? Okay. So let me pause there before I jump into the salary survey side of things. Any questions on classification? We'll go through that questionnaire here at the end. Any questions on anything so far? Okay. All right. Salary survey side of things. So we've gone through the process. We've handed out questionnaires. Employees have completed the questionnaires. We've read through them. We have the people in updated job titles. We can now go out and look at what is the market going rate. So maybe somewhere between 10 and 15 different comparators we'll use for the study. We've proposed a list to the bargaining groups for their review, their feedback. Going to present a list to council as well. And then that conversation will take place between the groups and city management to come up with the approved list of comparators that we'll use for the study. But it usually lands between 10 and 15 comparators in the market. We want to find places that are close by, similar agencies that have similar jobs. Not everyone has fire, not everyone has water distribution, not everyone has, treatment, collection, all of those different things. So, if our list of possible comparators is maybe 15 agencies, maybe only 9 of those agencies have a comparable job to your job. If we have 15 agencies, we'll find 15 accountants, right? Everyone's got an accountant. They might call it an accountant 2, or, the naming is different everywhere we go. But so we won't find comparable matches and examples from everybody, but we want to have a statistically significant sample size to be able to say, all right, here's the market going rate for that work. When we go out and we look, like I said, we're requesting their org charts, their MOUs, their pay plans, so that we can answer the question, how do we stack up salary schedule to salary schedule? Then how do we stack up total compensation to total compensation? That can then be a valuable conversation to take place to say, all right, where are we? We've seen some groups that are, behind on salary, but ahead on benefits. Is that good? Is that where we want to be? Start to say that gets to be a little bit of a conversation to take place at the table, as well as with council, to say, where do we want to be? right? The value of those benefits, the value of your benefits usually doesn't hit home until you got like, 2.2 kids and you're maybe 13 years away from retirement and you're going, oh, now I get it. Now I understand this, right? Or, I'm old enough to remember back in the day when the old timer used to grab the form from the new guys and be like, all right, you're going to max out this deferred comp, or you're going to do this. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Right. So being able to kind of like stack up and say, hey, where are we on salary? Where are we in total comp? How does that align? Right. There's a group of people, that newer generation, that's just looking to make the truck payment. They're just looking to put food on the table, and the value of those benefits hasn't really hit home yet. Right. And they don't fully understand that. So we need to make sure we're competitive on salary. We have to look at total compensation, right? Total compensation is a significant portion of a city's expenditure on people, right? Retirement, health insurance contribution, ad pays, cert pays, education, longevity. It's a very big dollar amount that gets spent in those categories. What you as an employee earn and your total compensation is more than just the salary. So we want to look at both of those, make sure we're competitive. Where are we? How do we stack up? And then that helps to answer the question, where do we want to be? Where are we? From there, negotiations, finance, counsel, that helps set the conversation of where do we want to be, right? Imagine we go through this process, we do this study, and by amazing administration over the last years, hey, you're set. You only got a couple positions that are behind market. Great. Okay, awesome. That's probably really easy to fix. Imagine it's the opposite. Hey, we're behind, and we're behind by a lot. Okay, now it might take multiple years to get caught up. You didn't get into this situation in a year. You might not be able to get out of it in a year. A lot of times, what it means for an individual employee, how much does the salary change? What happens? What happens to each individual job? That depends on how big of a problem do we have, right? So back to my statement from earlier, don't go buy a boat. I don't know what this means for each individual employee. Like I said, we do maybe 20 studies a year. And I've never had an employee come up to me after these meetings and been like, Bob, I'm really glad you're here. I go over to Jarb every 2 weeks and I tell him I'm overpaid and he just won't take money away from me. All right. I've never had an employee tell me that. So there's a little bit of an assumption that when we go out and we do this survey, we're going to find that your job is behind market. Again, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We don't know yet. We have to go look, right? We have a lot of work we have to do to go find that out. So couple possible outcomes of the study, right? So from the classification side of things, maybe when we go and we get these questionnaires back, we get these PAQs back, maybe we have some positions that are vacant. Nobody's in them. No one has been in this position for 10 years. It's on the salary schedule, but we don't use it anymore. The department doesn't need it. So maybe we can clean that up. Just remove that from the salary schedule. These are a really good time for housekeeping opportunities. Nobody's in it. We're not going to use it anymore. Well, let's remove it from the paperwork. Maybe we have jobs where we get these questionnaires back and I have 2 people. They're in 2 different departments and they're doing exactly the same thing, but they're called different things. Okay. Maybe we merge those 2 titles together where there were once 2 titles. We now just have 1 title. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe I got people and they have the same job title and they're doing different things. So maybe we split those apart and create some new titles that more accurately reflect the work that's being performed. Okay. Maybe all we need to do is update the job title, right? Like I said before, maybe we have a specialist and a coordinator is a better word to use, or, maybe we want to include the department in the job title. So we have whatever the title is. Okay. So as much as we can, I try to separate classification from compensation, right? So if right now we call the job a technician, but maybe a better label for it that's more consistent is to say specialist. And we rename it a specialist. A lot of times you will hear from the employee, okay, show me the specialist money, right? Specialist sounds fancier. Where's the money for that? Okay. maybe that job is good. Maybe it's competitive at market. So maybe the only thing that changes is the title. Maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the title stays the same, but when we go out and do the market survey, we find out that that job is behind market. Okay. So again, back to my statement of I don't know where everything will shake out and where it will land. But we've been tasked with saying, does the job title make sense? Does the job description reflect what you do? And what's the going market rate? How do we get from where we are now in relationship to the market to where we want to be? Okay. And so, a couple possible compensation implementation ideas. Okay. So, right off the bat, some jobs are going to be good, right? If we got, what was it, 70 some odd jobs, 67, something like that. If we have 67 job titles, some of them are going to be good. Some of them are going to be at market. We don't need to worry about them. Keep doing what you're doing with those. Those jobs will get their, get the COLA just like they would have before. It'll be like we're never here. Okay. So might mean nothing for those employees because we did a study. Now, maybe we got some jobs that are behind market. We need to increase those to get caught up to market. Okay. Maybe they're behind market and it's a small enough amount that we can get it caught up right away. All right. Maybe there's a job that's so far behind market, it might take multiple years to get caught up to market for that job. Right? Maybe a classic example is going to be pretend I got a job that's 10% behind market and the employee is in maximum of that job. Well, maybe I can take that job, shift it, and that employee goes from step 5 to step 3. And now over the next 2 years, they can get their step and their COLA to then get caught up to maximum, right? So it might take them 2 years to get caught up to the maximum of that new market number. Okay, so maybe we need to approach this over multiple budget cycles. Again, maybe you can get it caught right away. Maybe the job's good. So there's a lot of possible outcomes. So it's not uncommon that ranges move faster than employees. So that'd be kind of what we call next highest step. That example I gave, right? We got a job that's 10% behind market. Everybody's at maximum, so we can shift that range. Now that gets tricky if we have to shift it because I don't want a 1 year, 5 year, and 10-year person all making the same thing. I don't want to create a situation in which I got everybody on minimum. And now when a new employee comes in, they're making the same thing as somebody that they're training, or I'm responsible for training somebody who's making more than me. That doesn't sit well. All right. So we have to be careful with some of those ideas. We want to make sure we're using our ranges, we're moving people through them. But kind of the idea is you didn't get into this situation in a year. It might take more than a year to get out of it. Okay. That data is meant to live at the table, meant to be discussed so we can have a factual conversation about, hey, where are we? Where do we stack up? What do we look like salary schedule to salary schedule? What do we look like total compensation to total compensation? Okay. Any questions on that? Any questions on the compensation side of things? Yes, ma'am.
So you had mentioned about the total compensation package, correct? Now, some of those benefits are negotiable items, meaning the city can go to the table and take those items. So let's say we do this classification and comp study, and then the city comes and says, we're going to reduce this benefit, we're going to reduce this. And so you come and say, okay, our intention is to bring this to market value. And maybe the city does bring it to market value based on the total package, but now it's reduced because you take away that negotiable benefit because now we have salary and then benefits decrease. With your analysis, are you going to say salary is here in order to make them, in the middle of the road, to make them equivalent? Here's what salary looks like, and here's where there are total benefit package. Are you going to separate those two since it's so negotiable with benefits, and we're ending our contract on June 30th, so all of that can change. It can be taken away at any time.
Yeah, so the answer to that is yes. So we look at it through both of those lenses. Where are you salary schedule to salary schedule? Question 1, right? Then where do you stack up total comp to total comp? And I kind of forgot to go over this, so this is a really good question. To me, total comp is 4 moving pieces, right? Salary range maximum plus contributions to cafeteria plan, right? Health, dental, vision, what's the maximum amount an organization is willing to contribute to that health insurance pot. Okay, family plus or employee plus family maximum number. All right, then retirement. What is the employee responsible for contributing to their CalPERS plan? I don't know yet, and we kind of kicked this conversation off with the groups. Are we looking at classic or are we looking at PEPRA? 5 years ago, every single study I did was classic. Now we're right at that 50-50 barrier. 5 years from now, everything will be PEPRA, right? And retirement's going to just be noise at that point, right? Because all of the tier one employees will have kind of grayed out. And now it's going to be pretty much everybody's PEPRA. So either way we slice that, the employee is kicking in a percentage of their take-home pay to that. Okay, so what's that number look like? Then are you getting anything on top of that in terms of deferred comp, anything else that goes into your retirement? For retirement, we're not looking at like retiree medical insurance premiums in retirement before Medicare eligibility age. Those things are just so weird, right? Like they're just, and everybody's tiering those as like a side note. Everybody's moving away from those. They're saying, hey, if you've been employed from 2012 or before, you get it. Moving away from that.
So
Okay.
there's also, you have MOUs and you have benefit profiles for the unrepresented group. And so that's also a negotiated item for certain extra incentives. Are you looking at part of that for the total compensation as well? For those additional things that's part of total compensation?
That's kind of that fourth bucket. That fourth bucket is all of my ad pays. Longevity, bilingual, certification, education, EMT, paramedic. But my disclaimer on that is we will include it if everybody's eligible to get it in the group. So things like assignment pay, shift differential, callback, things that not everybody gets that are just kind of noisy almost, then we won't put those in. Like in a fire environment, you're going to see like tiller pay for 3 people. Okay. We're not going to put that in, but as, maybe if there's like an urban search and rescue that everybody has to have, or, a hazmat that everybody is required to have, so that even though they say 100,000, they all have to be hazmat certified, and that hazmat's 5%. Okay, well, so that fourth bucket of ad pays gets to be a little bit complicated, but looking at that. And again, back to this, when we're looking at that, the total compensation piece is going to vary for jobs at the city. Also at the comparators, right? So if I have 15 comparators, each one of those comparators is going to have a general labor unit. Some of them might have general employees plus like an IBEW or an SEIU or a Teamsters on the side. Then they're going to have like supervisory, management, executive, fire management. Now I got 7 groups times 15 comparators, and it's 100 MOUs, right? So when we're looking at it, what the benefits you get in your non-rep management job, the person out in the market might actually be a represented management employee at a different city. Okay, so they get that benefit level, which is going to be different than, fire gets, which is different than water gets. So it becomes really complicated in making sure we're keeping everybody in the right buckets so that we can have that conversation. How does this job stack up? Salary schedule. How does it stack up total comp to total comp? There's also a couple other like variables in there in terms of like paid time off. I put those in a matrix that lives on the side because it gets really weird to like multiply total comp into that. To be like, okay, your health insurance number is low, but I gave you an extra 2 days off. So we're all the same. And it's like, oh, I'm not sure if I agree. I'm not sure how I feel about all of that. So I like to provide that data separately so that you can have that conversation. Are we competitive in paid time off year 1, year 5, year 10, year 20? Okay, you can have that conversation. And that helps you to then look at it. Things also like cash out of health insurance, right? Those kind of things. Those are deeply individual decisions that families make for what is best for them and their groups. But we can answer the question, hey, what are, our 15 comparators, what are their policies for health insurance cash out? That's a factual question. What's right for the individual, that's a personal decision. So we can provide some of that so that you guys can have a conversation to say, hey, what are we doing? What does it cost? Where are we? And then where do we want to be? Um, you know, one of the more interesting conversations I was at a table, I think it was Santa Ana, and the SAIU president had said, I can't eat my benefits. It's like, I love that sentence. I love that sentence. But you can't take them away either, right? We can't ignore them in the cost of the contract and the conversation. So being able to kind of finally have all the pieces there on the table so that everybody knows, hey, here's where we're at. And back to that, like it might be different. There might be some jobs that in the group where you're all in the same group, but one job is behind and the other one isn't. So one job might now need to move more than the other one. So it's going to vary, which can sometimes get difficult at contract ratification and things like that if it means different things to different people. But the idea is to provide that data so you can have that conversation and say, where are we? What do we value? Where do we want to be? Yeah.
Too about something that you said. From what it sounded is that after this all concludes, you make recommendations to the city about how to proceed once they get this data. There's no guarantee that the city is going to do anything, but you make a recommendation of how you correct this, say that we're off market or what. And you had mentioned, hey, changing the salary range to putting someone at 3. Are you going to do an in-depth analysis of our processes? For example, like our range, it takes 12 years to max out our range
Right.
because the last 2 steps take 6 years, and that's not normal. So if you have a newbie come in and they start at a lower range, it's kind of punitive to that person because it's going to take them 6 years, and that person's going to catch up really quickly to them. So are you guys going to do an in-depth analysis of how Loma Linda operates and figure out a strategy on, hey, Loma Linda, this is how we recommend you correct this in what your current procedures are, because maybe it's different than Santa Ana, maybe it's different than San Bernardino, because ours is a traditional, like how they operate, like an in-depth analysis.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in looking at salary schedule design. How do we design it? Where do we put our steps? Where are we? How long does it take to move between steps? You know, I know, and again, that varies based on comparator. And I think it was, San Bernardino, they had like 0.25% between their steps or something. And there's like 76 of them, so it's like, everybody slices that a little bit differently. One of the things, again, anecdotally that we're seeing is people are adding steps to the top lately because it's a way to increase the salary range maximums and say, hey, let's get there over time. So it used to be 10 years ago, everyone was on a 5x5x5. I got 5 steps, they're 5% apart, and the difference between range 1 and range 2 is 5%. And that, I mean, you can just copy and paste that everywhere. Everybody used a 5x5. Now people are going away from it. Some people are going on to like 10 by 2.5s. So the steps are smaller and it takes you theoretically longer to move through them. But now they're doing like performance evaluations. I'll give good people 3 steps, so they're tying it to performance, right? So everybody's kind of reinventing that salary schedule wheel. So
yeah, so like you want to say, oh, do this, but then not an understanding of like how we operate specifically at Loma.
Yeah. So yes. Now also back to the first part of that question. No, I can't make anyone do anything.
Yeah.
I can't make city council do something. Right? City council, but inside of that, you can still have a conversation. Okay, here's where we are. All right. So let's say we go through this whole exercise and discover there's a big problem. Okay. All right. Well, maybe instead of saying, let's get all jobs caught up to market average, exactly to market, maybe year 1, we say, okay, let's try to get all jobs to within 10% of market. Then maybe 8, then maybe 6, and kind of chip away at it over time. Okay. So there's a little bit of ability to say, all right, where can we do what? What do we have available? Again, maybe you didn't get into the situation in a year, you can't get out of it in a year. But also too, in that, the data lives at the table. So you guys can see, oh, hey, we're behind on this one. Hey, during negotiations, I care, this job. And it just helps provide some clarity to them. But that's, that conversation is kind of the next where that rubber meets the road. Back to the PAQ, the more we know and don't have to guess, the more it helps us find that job in the market. Okay. Good questions. Anything else before we jump into the PAQ? No? Okay. All right. So PAQ. This is kind of like I alluded to, this is the process by which all the employees can tell us directly what it is they do. An email is going to go out on Thursday. I wrote Friday in here. Sorry about that. Email is going to go out on Thursday with a link in it to create a new questionnaire. If you're not comfortable on the computer and you want a paper copy, that's fine. We have paper copies. However you want to complete this works for us. You can work on them as a group. Obviously in fire, you guys are out there, you're busy. We don't want to create redundancies. Just, someone draw the short straw, fill it out. Yeah.
From your experience with this, fire is typically universal
Mhm.
for the most part from city to city.
Mhm.
So it's almost necessary to do all this PhD stuff for you guys.
So it's helpful if you look at if the existing job description isn't up to date. Now, if you guys look at it and you get together and you say, man, our existing job description's spot on. It's good. No need for an improvement. Okay. I'm okay with that. But then again, also too, there's going to be an employee. If there's somebody who's like, no, I want to do a PAQ. You guys don't know what I do. I want to do a PAQ. Let them. Right. The last thing we ever want is for somebody to feel like they didn't get a chance to represent their position. Right. So, however that works, we just want to know that. We just want to know, yeah, your firefighter's a firefighter. Or are they really a paramedic? Are you guys doing transport? Do you have hazmat certs? Is there anything here unique that if I go out and say, okay, well, a firefighter is a firefighter is a firefighter. Well, no, because you guys do, you're all paramedics and, we can't compare just to a firefighter or something, whatever that picture is, as long as we help and know that, that's what we're after. Okay. So yeah, working on them as part of a group, you can work on them as a team. You can do them with your supervisor. Again, however you want to do that. You got about 2 weeks. So we'd like to get all the questionnaires back by Thursday, the 10th, I think it is. So you got about 2 weeks to do that. It should take maybe between an hour and 2 hours to complete the PAQ. So please avoid the college homework problem. If you have 2 weeks, don't start it on night 13. Maybe when the email comes out, click on it, start looking around, kind of get comfortable with it, start thinking about it, print out your existing job description, carry it around with you for a week, start thinking about it. When you wake up at 2 a.m., when you're like, I do this, write it down, kind of just get that process started. You'll find it starts to fill itself out when you do it in chunks. I'll show you how to save and continue later. So the email that goes out on Thursday is going to have a link to start a new questionnaire. Every time you click on that link, it would start a new questionnaire. I'll show you how to save your answers and come back to it at a later point in time. If you forget to do that and you worked on it for an hour and closed it out, we have all the answers. Just get a hold of Jarb. He'll send us an email and we can get you a link to come back to your responses. So we never lose any data. I think we've done 30,000 PAQs through this over the last 5 years. We've never lost anybody's questionnaire, knock on wood. I don't want to do it this time, but so if you started filling it out, that's good for us. We can help you get back to it. Okay. So first section, you're going to select your name from a drop-down menu, select your department, select your job title. It's going to then pre-populate page 2. We get 2 questions from employees in this process. Question number 1 that we get is the information in the payroll file wasn't correct. What should I do? The answer is that's okay. You can edit it on page 2. So on page 2, You can tell us your name if you've had a name change, email, job title, what's your supervisor's name, what's your supervisor's information. The supervisor email address, we'll get to this in a minute, but at the end of everything, when you click submit, an email is going to go to you with a copy of your questionnaire. Then an email is going to go to your supervisor for their review, their comments on the PAQ. Supervisors cannot change anything the employees wrote. Like, it's not technically possible. So the supervisors are then going to give their comments, their input on their supervisory section. When the supervisors click submit, an email is going to go to the employee with a copy of the supervisor's comments. Then the email goes to the supervisor with a copy of their questionnaire. So everybody can see what everybody's writing on these PAQs. Okay. But in order for that process to work, we need to have the email addresses. So if something isn't correct, you can edit it there. All right, next question. Are you working on it as part of a group? If yes, it'll bring you to this page where you just start typing their name into the questionnaire. Tag them like it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever the kids are using these days. This is built from the payroll file, so just start typing their name, click on it, and it'll add them to this questionnaire so that we know all 10 of these people do the same thing. And all 10 of these people have done and are participating in this PAQ. All right. Next question. Kind of the first 2 pages of writing, I'll be honest, are the hardest. They're the blankest. They require the most creative writing, and maybe they're the ones that like taunt you the most with their emptiness. The first question, position's purpose. Give me 3 to 5 sentences about what it is the job entails. If I were to say, hi, I'm Bob. It's nice to meet you. What do you do? Put that there. Okay. Give us that high level summary. Why the position exists. We have job description writers who will make it sound like it belongs on a job description. They know all the right verbs and tenses and that stuff. Just give them the content, help them to understand. Again, if you're having a hard time getting started, look at your existing job description up at the top, the position's purpose. Give us that mission statement, give us that summary. We've moved this question to the end. There's a section where if you want to tell us what your job is called out in the market, you're more than happy to. We'll start reading the job descriptions there. Not to say we agree with that, but we'll start there. Some people get like flyers in the mail from cities next door trying to recruit them. And they're like, oh, I know that I'm a project, specialist or whatever it is over there. So there's a section where if you want to share any of that industry information, you can. All right, up at the top, save and continue later. There's a save and continue later button. When you click on that, it's going to be a drop down, put in your email address. It'll send you an email that's just your link to get back to just your responses. So that's your friend if you want to work on this over a period of time. All right, this section, there's 8 boxes here. Like I said, this is the emptiest and hardest getting started. So on the left-hand side here, the percentage of time, give us what percentage of the time do you spend? And then over here on the right, these boxes, what are those functions and tasks and duties? So maybe you spend 10% of your time on budget development. So tell me that in the percentage of time. And then on the task performed, give me 3 or 5 sentences about what that task entails and what that looks like. Percentage of time is an intentionally devious question for us to ask. We're trying to get you to think about where are you spending most of your time? Okay. Now, I'm okay if that varies seasonally and you want to give me percentage of time based on a week, a month, a year. Hey, I spend about 10% of my year doing storm drain, storm system collection, clean out, and maintenance. It's really busy during the heavy rainy season. During the rainy season, I'm spending, 80% of my time. We're removing debris. We're cleaning culverts. We have pressurized, storm water runoff collection areas and pumps and discharges. And we're maintaining all, give us an idea of what it is that you're doing and what it entails. And again, that's going to vary seasonally, a lot of for people who work outside. So just try to do your best to give us a percentage of time for what you're responsible for, what those tasks look like. And then maybe 3 to 5 sentences over here in that section. All right. Again, save and continue later button is your friend. If you're tired of us and all we're doing is talking about it, maybe save and continue later button. Next is the knowledges and skills and information sources. What do you need to be knowledgeable of? What do you need to be skilled in order to safely and competently perform this position? What do you have to have knowledge is? Are there any information sources that you need to be aware of? Again, you don't have to list out an exhaustive list of codes or anything like that, but give us the general ideas. Start to see how this gets to be a little bit more fill in the blank, a little bit more check the box. At the top of this page, I want you to put on your HR hat for a minute. Pretend you need to, go out and recruit for this position. What would you want someone to have in terms of a minimum education, minimum years of experience? Do they need to have a degree in something? Down here, do they need to have a degree in a specific related field or industry, and then years of experience? And also, do they have any kind of licenses and certifications that are required? Do you have to have that license day one? Can we hire you, train you to get that license, and you can get it over time? What does that picture look like for the certifications and the requirements for the job? Next is the authority, the accountability, maybe the autonomy of the position. What does the relationship with your supervisor look like? Did they say, hey, Bob, thanks for coming into work today. You have 10 things you need to complete today. Here's where task number one's located. Here's how you do task number one. Oh, okay, you've done that? Great, awesome. Let me come review your work. Okay, you reviewed it. You're good. Let's move on to task number two. Is that what your relationship with your supervisor looks like? Or is it, hey, congratulations on being hired. Good luck. Probably a little closer to that second example, right? But where on that spectrum is what we're trying to find. What decisions do you make? What decisions does your supervisor make? When do you have to raise your hand and say, I can't make this decision. I need authorization from my supervisor. What decisions are you making? What decisions are your supervisor making? What does that line of demarcation look like? This gets to be helpful in terms of, you start to think about ones and twos and threes and some of those different things, as well as, some of those interactions. Do you represent the city to any outside agencies, organizations? When are you speaking on the city's behalf? When do you represent them? And then finally, any other information we forgot to ask you? Anything else that you think is helpful for us to know? If you want to have an org chart, you can attach documents to it. If you want to include a marked up job description or, whatever you think is helpful for us to know, we'll review that there. Then finally, if you supervise other people, say yes. It'll bring you to this page where you can go through a quick little hire and fire matrix. Give us the names and job titles of people that report to you up in this upper section, and then go through to say, hey, are you the one who makes recommendations on, approving or training, or do you approve overtime? Do you review it? Do you recommend disciplinary action? Are you the one who signs the performance evaluation? If someone's out sick, do they call you? Are they calling the lead? Did they call the supervisor? Who are they calling when they're out sick? What about disciplinary action? Those kinds of decisions. So then click next. When you get to this page, this is going to be the signature page. Just click and drag and then type in your name down below and then click next. When you click next, an email is going to go out to your supervisor and it's going to say, hey, so-and-so has completed the PAQ. Here it is attached as a PDF. And then the supervisor will click on the link to review that PAQ and give us their input, their thoughts on that questionnaire. All right, it's as fast as I can talk through any of that. Any questions on anything so far? Yes.
You mentioned about the save and continue button.
Mm-hmm.
Are we able to go back and edit if something changes and we want to, like the first couple pages? Mm-hmm. So we can edit back as well? Yep.
So down at the bottom, these back and next buttons
are on every page,
and they'll take you back to it. You can go all the way back to the start, so they're on every page. That's how you navigate. If you hit the back button on your browser, it'll try to exit out. It'll go, you're done with your survey, right? So use the back and the next. The save and continue later button Technically, as soon as you type something in the box, it's saved. That just gives you the link to get back to it. So you only need to use it once. And then once you have that link, you're set.
Is there character limits in the boxes?
Not that I've ever run into. I'm sure there is. Like if you pasted the entirety of Wikipedia in there, yeah, it'll probably like short out at some point in time. Yeah, within reason. Yeah, we've gotten some relatively long PAQs before. Now, I'll also say too, you're not going to end up with a 36-page job description. So either you edit it down or we edit it down. But it's always good to know the information, and we're happy to edit it down. And the job description isn't also a manual for completing the work, right? Someone can't pick up the job description and go, I know how to do this job in its entirety. So
Snapshot of like kind of what our desk looks like, and then using that to form really a job description. You want to know how much our workload, what we're doing, and then using that to craft the job description.
right. So if you think about your existing job description, it's got all those bullet points on it.
Correct.
We're trying to know what are those bullet points? What is it that you're doing? What does your job entail? And then we're trying to group them into those industry specific terms, functions, tasks, and duties.
Then we get emailed the final copy, so we submit our final copy, it goes to our supervisor, they make their edits.
Yep.
And then at that point, it's completed and we get that final copy.
Yeah. So you're going to get 2 emails.
Got it.
Yep. And I think the subject line of the email is like a copy of your PAQ. I think I made it clear and searchable. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good questions. Any questions? Any questions from anyone online? I kind of forgot about you guys. I'm sorry. There were 9 people. Okay. All right. Well, I will hang out. I'll be in the room. I'll be here on Zoom.
Add one more thing.
Yes.
He will be here tomorrow also.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
He has meeting with me and the other group from 10 to 11 or
Mhm.
11:30. And in the afternoon, we will be here, so if you have any questions, you can stop by and ask.
Yep. Yeah. If there's anything you didn't want to ask in front of the group, you can like cover up your name tag and come ask me. Happy to answer.
So
Yeah.
a list of cities you said were going to be emailed to the union groups, or they already have been sent?
So they have already been, we did a presentation like this before at like 11 with them, and they have the list from that sheet. And then, so they have a hard copy of that list. And I think we're sending them an email with that PDF in it.
I wasn't here for that meeting. Version.
For you, there'll be a different group meeting with you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. I think because you guys were out in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the
I'm
firefighter.
the only one here. Everyone else is.
Yeah.
Yes, especially the firefighter is tomorrow at 10.
Perfect. See you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.